Hi, it's me, Vicki Marie. Thanks for being here. Okay, so today, what am I going to chat about today? Well, I'm going to chat about a case, a lady called Helen Bailey, I'm going to chat about, and her dog, Boris, who were horribly murdered in 2016. So it's a little while ago, but these cases, although there are obviously cases going on at the moment, and we're talking a lot about Nicola Bulley, etc., but I think it's important not to forget these cases and the lessons we can learn from them. There's a lot we can learn about this case, and again, see, when I get this case has always interested me. I've only just really started doing videos about true crime, really, but I've always been interested in this particular case. It really calls to me. Sometimes cases call to me. Maybe I feel an empathy with that person for whatever reason. I don't know what it is, and then they're like when I've been sort of preparing this video about Helen. It's like she's all around me. It's a very strange feeling. And the same when I did the video about Lindsay, or when I'm doing videos about Nicola, there's a feeling that, now maybe that's just doing, we all have our beliefs about, spiritualism, or, I've got my beliefs and I wouldn't like to inflict my beliefs on you, but there's definitely an intuition. Whatever you think, there's something. There's feelings that you get. People have talked for years about women's intuition. Policemen or women that have hunches, they just, after someone's been in the police for a long time, they get instinctive feelings about people. And it's not being psychic, it's just intuition, empathy. These things exist. They definitely exist. We can't explain them, and everybody has their own sort of idea about them, but they definitely exist. And that's how I feel, that's how I felt over the last few days, preparing this video and thinking about Helen. And anyway, before I start right into it, usual sort of housekeeping. Thank you so much for all of you that have bought the Confessions of a Spanish Teacher, and some of you have been very kind and left very good reviews on Amazon for me, and I really appreciate that, and that helps me out in a big way. And I'm glad you seem to be enjoying it as well. So that's, I think, as I said in other, I didn't write this video to, nothing that I do on this channel is to make money. My day job is the teaching Spanish. That's what I do to earn money, if you like. That's what I do to live. Everything I do on this channel, I enjoy doing. I do it because I'm interested in it. And this book I wrote because it was like all inside me, and I just wanted to write it down, what had happened, and I thought it might be interesting for people, and it seems like it is. So thank you ever so much for that. And if you do want to buy it, the links will be in the description box. And the other thing, of course, is going back to my day job, where I teach Spanish, and my books are available on Amazon as well, levels 1 to 5. So it doesn't matter if you're an absolute beginner or you're advanced and you just want to practice what you already know. There'll be a level there for you, and if you're not sure of your level, just contact me and I will tell you which level I think will suit you. So let's go back to Helen. It's always difficult with these videos to know where to start, because where I say that in my book, where does a story start? It's very difficult, isn't it? Our life journeys, decisions we take, relationships we embark on, jobs we take. They don't normally. It's very. If we have to identify an absolute starting point, it's quite difficult, isn't it? I think this story of Helen is a bit of there are lessons to be learnt from it. It's a very sad story, but it's also it's a bit of a warning, I think, because I think both men and women we're very vulnerable. When we're at our most vulnerable time, that's when we're likely to meet the narcissist or the person with ulterior motives, because our judgment is clouded. From what I can see about Helen, she was obviously a very, very intelligent lady. And yeah, it's a surprise really that she got involved with this person that she got involved with. But you know, we've all been there. We can all do it, men or women, especially when you're vulnerable. So let's tell the story of Helen. We can see how she ended up in this situation, and unfortunately, she met the wrong person, basically. But anyway, so Helen was born on the 22nd of August in 1964. So she was a Leo, like me. I'm a Leo. And she was born in Pontyland in Northumberland, which I don't know that area very well, but Northumberland is right up in the north of the UK. So she was British, northern British lady, and she died in Royston in Hertfordshire. Now, I'm so embarrassed to say, because I don't even know the geography of Britain. I'm not actually sure where Hertfordshire is. I'm pretty certain it's not in the north, but you can tell me, any of you may be from that area. Geography is my most, it's a terrible subject for me. I just don't know where anything is geography wise. Probably know more about Spain than I do about the UK, because I've travelled quite a lot around the UK really, but here in Spain, I suppose, when I've been out travelling around Spain, it's deliberate, like, going to view places, not to do with work. I travelled quite a lot in the UK with work when I worked on race courses, etc. But here in Spain, the travelling that I've done has been more of let's go and see this city, because I've not been there before. So I know more about where the places are. Anyway, geography, not my thing, sorry. Anyway, Helen was reported missing in April 2016, and I'm going to play the 911, I'm in the American thing there, the 999 call from her partner Ian. So I'm going to play that now. Okay.
Can I help? Hello there, my partner has been missing since Monday and not contacted anyone. Said she was going away, hasn't ended up where she said she was going. So we just decided we should report it. Oh yes, hasn't been reported already? No, it hasn't, no. Okay, right. Has she been missing since Monday? Yeah. Okay, bear with me, so, right, Penny, I'll put these details down. Sorry, I can't hear you. Penny, I'll put these details down. So she's been missing since Monday? Mm-hmm. Okay. What's the address that she's missing from? And what's the town? What's your partner's name? Helen Bailey. Helen Bailey. Is that B-A-Y-L-E-Y? No, B-A-I-L-E-Y. And what's her date of birth? Oh, crikey. God, she's funny there. 22nd. Right, just let me double check. 1 second. Oh, God.
Doesn't know a date of birth. A lot of men don't know their partner's date of birth, I suppose.
22nd of August, 1954. 54, yeah, 1954. 64. 64, my apologies. No, my fault, sorry, not just my brain is sorry. Righty, so she's gone away, was that for work business, sorry? No, she's self-employed, so she works from home. So she left a note. She said in the note something like, I need space and time alone. I'm going to Broadstairs. Please don't contact me in any way. But in Broadstairs, we've got a cottage down there, but people have been down there with neighbours, and she's not there. I haven't been there either. So, Broadstairs, where is Broadstairs? Near Margate. Margate? Yes. Well, can I just take a call, because someone just phoned me? Okay, no problem. Hello? No, I'm actually on the phone to the police. Can I come back to you? Yeah. Okay, sorry. Bye. Sorry, I was a friend, so she was just asking, sorry. So, Broadstairs, the property's in Margate, was that? No, sorry, no, it's a little cottage we got down there. It's near Margate. Margate, okay. 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 And so please do not contact me, yeah? I'm sorry, you're very quiet. What did you say? Sorry, apologies. It says please do not contact me as well on the note. Oh, yes, please don't contact me anyway. Okay. And nothing like a deadline when she'd be back or when you could contact her, nothing like that at all? No, this has never happened before, no. And her phone is just dead. It's not, well, I say dead, it just doesn't ring. It just goes straight to answer machine. And someone's been to the cottage and someone's been to the cottage, yeah. My brother went there. Did it look like anyone had been in there? No, someone went in and it doesn't like anyone's been in there. Did Helen go in a vehicle? No, she didn't. She left her car here. She did take her dog with her. She's got a little dachshund.
Didn't take her car, but
she
took
by
her
train,
dog.
or she could possibly take a taxi. She does do that sort of thing. Okay. And the dog was a dachshund? Yeah. Dachshund dog. Okay, so I just need to go through some questions with you. If you want to go through them. Can I take your name, please? Ian Stewart. S-T-E-W-A-R-T. Oh, wonderful. So, anyway, I've got the details that we know at this time. Sorry, did you ask me a question then? Oh, no, sorry. I just said I'll have to go through these details. I've already got like her name and birthday. We've got those, so to put those in quickly.
I think she's very difficult to understand, the actual person who, the dispatch handler or whatever they call them.
3:20 to 3. And did she say anything to you unusual or? No, nothing before I went out. No, she just asked me to run an errand for her after I had been to the doctors. Okay. And she said nothing to you then, was she leaving the premises at that time? No, I left her here. Oh, you left her, okay. So you left about 2:45 or so, and then what time did you return? Must have been probably just before 5. I didn't actually really notice. Yes, no problem. And that's when you saw the note? I didn't see it straight away. She put it on the desk. I didn't see it straight away, no. What time did you realise the note had been left? Oh, I don't know. About 5:15, something like that. Yeah, so a few minutes later, yeah. Yeah, not very long. No, not very long, sorry, yeah. And was that note a bit of a shock? Were you expecting it at all? No, well, yes, it was a shock. She hadn't talked about it, but it was still a shock. Yeah. Yes, talked about Wednesday. Things just haven't been going well for her recently, or for us. Okay, so she mentioned wanting space, but she's never actually acted on it. She's not left before. She's never done anything like this before, no. Okay. And so at this time, we have no idea where Helen is, no? No one, no. And I've contacted, there's 4 people who basically, who she would contact her brother, 2 best friends. And they've not heard from them. They assured me they've not heard from them. They promised they would say. And so you spoke to 2 of her brothers and 2 of her friends? No, I spoke to her, sorry, I didn't tell her very well. I spoke to her brother John, and 2 of her friends, 3 of her friends, effectively, but one was direct. I haven't spoken to her directly, but someone else has. So there's 3 girlfriends, or 3 women, and her brother. And they're the only people who know at the moment, because I'm the neighbours down at Broadstairs sort of have an inkling that we're all concerned. But we haven't said it, we haven't told her parents, or my parents, or my sons. Oh, okay, so your parents and Helen's parents aren't aware of this at the moment? Not at the moment, no. Although her brother has spoken to her parents and he's sure she's not there. This may sound silly, but she's definitely not at home, no? No, in front of us, but I've literally checked everywhere. We have got quite a large house, so I've literally checked everywhere. And she's never been missing before, no? Not since I've known her 5 years, but no, and her brother says no. Does she have any sort of medical or psychological issues at all? Well, she's menopausal. That's the medical issue. Yeah, she did have I don't like to use the word weight. That's a problem.
Menopausal.
She did see a psych. She was in.
Oh gosh.
And she was in Greek therapy. I think this was probably about 10 years ago, maybe longer. She hasn't said much about that to me, but she did go through that. Yeah. So yeah, she did answers to that. Yeah. That was about 10 years ago. Well, I think so, yeah. So what I just told you is all I knew. Yeah. All I really know. That's all a friend really knows as well. No problem, thank you. Does she take any sort of medication that she critically needs, do you know? No, she's not. I've been wanting her to go to the doctor because of why, but she won't go to the doctor. The only medicine she takes is what she buys over into there. Things like herbal stuff, vitamins, that sort of stuff. Oh, okay, no problem. Yeah, nothing, no medical condition, nothing like diabetes or anything. Okay. And again, sorry to repeat this, but she's not attempted suicide or self-harm ever before, no? No, everyone's sure she hasn't, no. Okay. And can she interact safely with other people? Would she be happy going up to someone asking for directions?
Oh yes, she's a very good. She's an author. She's a children's author. She reads books. Yeah, she's very good talking to people.
And is she ever likely to be a victim of any sort of abuse that you know of?
No, she's a very strong person. It's very hard to abuse her.
Very hard to abuse her. You've tried.
This is probably because she lost her husband, well, about just over 5 years ago. And that's how I met her, because I lost my partner. And we met through the bereavement group.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I don't know if that's relevant, but I just thought you should better tell it.
Oh yeah, I can pop that down. It all helps. Maybe a bit random, but is she likely to be involved or subjected to crime at all?
She said, I'm sorry, I heard the word crime, but I don't know.
Is she likely to be involved with or subjected to crime?
No.
No. And could you describe her dog for me, if that's alright?
It's a miniature dachshund. I mean, it's brown, it's not white, it's a smooth coat miniature dachshund. So it's pretty self-explanatory.
Is it male, female?
It's male.
Does it wear a collar or anything?
Yes, it does. It wears a yellow collar. Well, it does when we're out. Well, it doesn't in the house, but it does when we're out, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, I'll pop some more details now, so bear with me if I go quiet.
Okay.
Okay, so just need to go into her sort of physical appearance now, if that's alright. So, what's her height initially?
Oh, I'm going to guess it. She hasn't told me, but she's probably 5'10", just something like that. Quite tall.
5'10", yeah. And what sort of build? Is she slim? Slim.
That's easy.
Her hair colour and style?
It's on the shoulder, long. She won't like me saying this, it's black going grey. Grey streaky. Not grey streaky, it's going grey, so it's black. But she's just as it natural, so it's got grey highlights in it, if you like. Probably the best way to describe it.
And her eye colour?
Oh my god, how do you forget these things?
How indeed?
Sorry, it's just gone out of my head.
That's no problem.
Oh god, that's terrible.
That's no problem. And her sort of skin colour?
Pale, I guess I would say. Pale.
Oh yeah, is that sort of white pale? Yeah.
Yeah, white pale, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
God, how can I not remember her eye colour? That's terrible.
Alright. And what sort of clothes would she typically wear?
What sort of clothes?
Yeah.
Well, typically, jeans and a shirt. Jeans, typically just day to day.
Does she have a handbag with her?
Well, she's got quite a few out. I don't know. I would normally yes, but I don't particularly know which one she's taken, if she's taken one.
No problem at all.
Just 3 more minutes, bear with, because it is important.
Of course it is. I'm going to have to look it up, because it's something I can never remember. It's just in my phone, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
The beeps, the phone number.
Well, that's what we think, yeah. Or it's out of service, out of range, or...
Brilliant. Okay, so I've got that information. Leave that with us. What I will do now is I'll send this across to our officers, and what we'll do is make some sort of inquiries about her, see if we know if information with police and hospitals, etc. We'll cover those bases. If you have any further information, please do give us a call, and what we'll do is give you a call if we have any further or we need any further information, alright?
Okay, so what do I do? Is there anything else to be done now?
I can say, no, not at this time. If I give you the reference number for this call, it's at 475.
475?
Yep, and that's of today's date, which is the 15th of the 4th.
So if I want to ring you, what do I ring 101? That's how I got through to. Is that the right way to come?
Yeah, if you call us on 101, and just say reference number 475 of the 15th of the 4th, and we can find this log and we know exactly what's going on.
Okay.
Alrighty. Would you mind as well if I just take the whole address of the cottage, if that's alright?
The whole address of the cottage? Wow.
Yeah, you've got it.
He doesn't know the address.
I'm not sure if I can give you that. I'll just go there.
I just go there.
I really don't know. I know it's Raglan Place. I don't know what number. I just give you a number. I'm sorry, I'll have to look that up. I really will. I'll just go there. Oh, no, I don't know. I'm looking that up somewhere.
That's no problem.
It's somewhere we just go, and I don't think I've ever... I must have the address. I've got the address somewhere, but I just don't know what it is. Sorry, no.
That's no problem at all. I'll let her off at this time without the cottage address. But if you do find out, just give us a call.
Yeah, no, I've got it, obviously, but it's or something. I never have to write there or anything, so yeah, okay.
Alright, Ian, so leave that with us for the time being, and we'll be in contact with you shortly, okay?
So when you say, because I'm going to be, because of Father's Wild and 2 friends, when you say shortly, what are you talking about? A day, 2 days?
It's all dependent, I couldn't say. It depends if you know where Helen is, we have any further leads, etc. It just all depends on what information we have.
Okay.
Alright, what's your best contact number?
Did I give you my mobile number?
I don't believe you have. I've got Helen.
My wife.
Okay, I think that's more or less it. Now, I'm glad I decided to play the longer version because I hadn't noticed, and maybe because I didn't notice, I've listened to the shorter versions, and that, okay, it's a bit of patience that we need to listen through it. But did you hear me mention the femipause? She's going through the femipause. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? Anyway, there's a few things there that, of course, when we look back, we've got the benefit of hindsight with this case, because we look back, we know, well, you'll find out what the result of it is in the end. We know what happened in the end, and we can look back and go through that call and other red flags, if you like. He didn't know her eye colour, which, you know, I'm sort of torn between these, because many years ago, one of my nephews went missing. And he went off with his friends somewhere, and they didn't come back when they were supposed to come back, and we were panicking because they'd gone to a reservoir, you know, and we phoned the police, and we got everything wrong. Not his eye colour, though, having said that, but the clothes he was wearing when we describe it, because he finally just turned up actually as the police were there, sort of walked in through the door. And he wasn't wearing what we'd said he was wearing, you know, so that it's quite difficult. You think you notice things and you don't, but I think eye colour, wouldn't you know your partner's eye colour? But anyway, so this is what happened. Helen just completely disappeared. And as I say, we've got the femipause reference there, which is one similarity to Nicola's case. But as you'll see, another reason why I picked this particular case to look at is the resolution of this case came from a neighbour, really, from information from a neighbour. And this is what I think is going to happen with Nicola eventually. You know, the people might say, oh, don't speculate, and now suddenly we're not supposed to say anything. But if there is a case to be solved with Nicola, it will be solved by neighbours or friends. Saying, I've said it before in one of my other videos, making an off-the-cuff remark to the police, and the police thinking, oh, hang on a minute. And that is what happened in this case, which we'll see later on. Otherwise, this case might never have been solved. So she's disappeared in April 2016. Her partner Ian makes the phone call. Another reason why that phone call is very important, and I wanted to play it, is you'll see later on as well, because there was a time in his life he made another 999 phone call, and it'd be interesting to compare them. And unfortunately, in July, so bear in mind this is from April to July before this case was resolved, so April, May, June, July, 4 months. So, you know, we're thinking, oh, we want a resolution of the Nicola Bulley case, but it takes time, you know, it doesn't just happen overnight. And on the 15th of July in 2006, Helen Bailey's remains and those of her beloved dog Boris were found, and I'll be explaining to you later where they were found. So let's talk a little bit about Helen. She was an author, a very successful author, and she wrote the Electra Brown series of books for teenagers, which was very successful. She had a degree in physiology from Thames Polytechnic in London, and initially, ironically enough, she wanted to be a forensic scientist. Anyway, for whatever reason, that didn't happen, and she began to work in the media. And she was involved in projects such as Rugrats, Garfield, and for Nintendo. So, you know, she was a very successful girl. Then in 1996, she married John Sinfield. He's the head, or was the head, of a licensing rights company. Now, he's older than her. They never had children. I don't know if that's a deliberate decision that Helen didn't want children, or that's a decision that was taken out of their hands. Maybe she couldn't have children, I don't know. But they didn't anyway, so there were no children. As I say, he was quite a bit older than her, you can see that from the photos. But anyway, she carried on, she wrote many books, and she was very successful. So in total, she had 22 books published for children and young adults. So everything seemed to be going well. They got that's when, you know, she had her dachshund, Boris. She loved her dachshund, who's a miniature dachshund that Ian mentioned there in the call. And then in February 2011, her and her husband went on holiday, decided to go on holiday. And at that time, she released a photo on Twitter of Boris, the little dog, and he was sitting in the suitcase. And they couldn't get him out of the suitcase. And unfortunately, perhaps Boris was trying to tell them something, though I must admit my animals don't like it when they see a suitcase come out. They know, don't they, that you're going off somewhere. But in February 2011, they went on this holiday. They went on holiday to Barbados. They'd been married 15 years and they'd been together for 22 years. As Helen was lying on the beach, her husband decided to go for a swim. She asked him not to because the currents were quite strong, and unfortunately he didn't acknowledge her warnings, if you like, and he went in and he was drowned. And she saw him drown in front of her. She could do nothing. So you can imagine this was very traumatic for Helen. But as an author, she turned around. Well, I say she turned around, I'm sure she struggled terribly, but she made a blog, Planet Grief it was called, and it became very popular, and it was a blog to help people get through bereavement, especially any widows, widowers, etc., how to get through it, how to cope with it, because of course you don't recover from, you know, you lose someone. These things never go away, do they? You never forget, you just learn how to cope with it. That's really what happens when you're bereaved. And it was a very interesting blog because she would bring in all sorts of type, because obviously there's bereavement when someone dies, but you know, when people divorce, that's like a bereavement, and she would question that. Is it, you know, how does it compare? You know, what are the things that are similar, the things that are different, and that. So she attracted a very big following on this blog from any person, male or female, that had been bereaved in some way or another, or even if it was through divorce and not through actual death. And she wrote her first book for adults in 2015, which was called Bad Things Happen in Good Bikinis. It's a good name. And then through this blog, this Planet Grief blog, this is where she met Ian Stewart, the guy who made the 999 call. He was also a widower. Now, it's quite shortly afterwards, isn't it? She lost her husband in April, I believe, February. And through this blog, she met Ian. Maybe she was still she obviously still was very vulnerable. Anyway, they started up a relationship, firstly just over the internet, etc. And eventually they met up. Now, what I want to play now, read out now, is a blog post that she made at the time that she met Ian. I think it's heartrending and I think it's very important. Okay, so I'm going to read it out. I hope I do it justice. Anyway, let me read it out to you. New love doesn't erase old loss and cure grief, but it brings with it complicated emotions and painful reminders. It's not easy living in a household that has only come together because of the death of other people, but losing those we love has made us cherish what we have now. I was never going to fall in love again, and no one was more surprised than me that I did. So Helen and Ian had moved in together with his 2 sons, because she had no children, but he had 2 grown-up sons, teenage sons, and they all moved in together into their house. Okay, I'll carry on. When it comes to grief, I have both good news and bad news for you. The good news is that however bleak and despairing you feel right now, you won't always feel this way. I promise you. The bad news is that there is no fast fix for grief. No amount of counselling, hypnosis, holding of crystals or drinking Merlot will cure your grief. And believe me, I've tried them all. Nor does finding a new partner cure grief, because if it did, widows would be given a subscription to an internet dating site along with their husband's birth certificate. But still, the perception remains that once Prince Charming Mark II turns up on a white horse to help you put the wheelie bins out, your grief is over. 24 hours after my husband John drowned whilst we were on holiday in Barbados in February 2011, came the first of many "You're young, you'll find someone else" comments. I didn't want anyone new. I wanted my husband, and the thought of even holding hands with a man, a strange man, was abhorrent. At 46, I was convinced that I would be alone forever. Then, about 6 months after John died, and at a time when life was so painful, I was praying to spontaneously combust in the street rather than continue to live without him. Something horrific happened in Marks and Spencer. While taking a shortcut through the women's underwear department, out of the blue, I had a seriously X-rated thought about Ian, a widower I'd met through an online bereavement group. Our messages to each other had been entirely platonic. He wrote about the grinding despair of living with his teenage sons, but without his wife. I wrote about my struggles, trying to bleed my temperamental radiators, something my husband used to do. I stood amongst the lace-trimmed bras, horrified, sweating with guilt. At home, I hid my photos of my husband in a drawer. I couldn't bear to look at him, knowing that in my mind I'd been unfaithful. The guilt over something I hadn't done yet with a man who hadn't even hinted at romance followed me everywhere. And one morning, my first thought wasn't to look at the empty pillow next to me, but to grab my phone to see whether Ian had sent me a message. It plunged me into a spiral of despair and confusion. When months later, Ian and I eventually met, instead of a white horse, he turned up in a battered red Ford Mondeo estate with a Mickey Mouse car aerial topper. He wasn't my type and completely different from my husband. But even so, I gave him a speech about how I didn't want a relationship ever again. He gave me a speech telling me he didn't either. To make sure that we both knew where we stood. After he left, I emailed him a synopsis of our discussion. We continued to meet as friends, but then we decided to go on a proper, posh clothes going to a restaurant date, something neither of us had done for more than 20 years. It was a disaster. I was too anxious to eat and ended up sobbing hysterically that I still felt married. It's still up for debate whether I pushed him out of the taxi or that he jumped, but what was clear to both of us that it was too much too soon. The funny emails and witty texts stopped. Life felt even darker than it already was. But we missed each other, and after more talking we fell in love. Far from feeling strange to hold a different hand, it felt absolutely wonderful. At first I kept our relationship quiet, not through shame that I'd begun to date him before the first anniversary of John's death had passed, though this didn't sit easily with me, but because I had fallen in love too quickly. If I had fallen in love too quickly with the wrong man, I wanted to make that mistake in private. When I finally revealed that I was dating in my blog, Planet Grief, some widows were angry with me, disappointed that I'd gone back on my earlier conviction that I'd never fall in love again. It's now over 4 years since Ian and I met. 2 years ago, we bought a house together. We planned to get married. New love doesn't erase old love and cure grief, but it brings with it complicated emotions and painful reminders. It's not easy living in a household that has only come together because of the death of other people, but losing those we love has made us cherish what we have now. I was never going to fall in love again, and no one is more surprised than me that I did. So it's a beautiful piece of writing, I think, and you can see it's heartfelt. You know, the guilt. I think people, widows and widowers, they do feel guilty when they meet someone else. But something else that I do think is, if someone's had a very good relationship, I think they do tend to meet people more quickly. If you've had a terrible relationship, you know, that you're glad to get out of, you're not going to jump back into another relationship the same. You know, so Helen had a lovely relationship with her husband, and, you know, so she was missing that. She wasn't glad, you know, some relationships you're glad to see the back of. She wasn't glad to see the back of her husband, you know, it was awful, you know, so I think she wanted that again. I think more for her than, say, for me, you know, to the relationships that I've lost. I've been, apart from the very sort of first serious relationship I had, which if you read my book you'll see about, but yeah, my first love, and, you know, I don't think I've ever got over that. But I think other relationships, to be honest, are just glad to see the back of them, so you're not so keen to get into another one, are you? But yeah, I think people that do lose someone and they get together with someone else quite quickly, it's probably because they had a very good relationship with that first person. They want that again. So that's how Helen felt at the time about this new guy that she'd met. And how did she describe him? She described him as her gorgeous grey-haired widower. Her gorgeous grey-haired widower. That's what she found. So she obviously, you know, found him attractive. It wasn't just a companionship thing. And and there you go, they fell in love. He love bombed her apparently in the beginning, you know, after they got over this. Apparently he did love bomb her, and anyway, it happened and they got together. So yeah, so now she's been reported missing by her partner. He'd claimed, as you heard, that she'd left a note saying she was going to stay at their holiday home in Broadstairs. That's where she would go to write, you know, or clear her head. Or, you know, when you're writing, you do need to be on your own. It's quite an isolating. You know, it's good, it's cathartic, it's all those things, but it's very difficult to be around other people when you're writing, because you sort of, they talk about the muse, it's absolutely true. It comes and you've just got to keep doing it, because it can go just as quickly as it's come. Okay, so I just want to make sure I haven't missed anything. Yeah, so the dog. So she always had it, Boris. So of course she'd had Boris from before she met Ian, from before her husband died, and Boris had tried to stop them going away on holiday, hadn't he, by sitting in a suitcase. But she adored that dog, you know, which I understand. I'm a bit like that with my dogs. You know, dogs are a big comfort, or any pets are a big comfort when you're going through traumas, etc. So the last time she was seen walking her dog, on the 11th of April 2016. That's the last time she was seen by anyone other than Ian. On the 11th of July, the police arrested a 55-year-old man on suspicion of murder. Now, bearing in mind that up to this point, they still didn't have a body. So this is the problem. It's very difficult. This is what happened with Mitchell Quay and Paul Lindsay. You know, if you haven't got a body, you haven't got any evidence. You know, people saying, oh, the police should do this, and the police, they can't do anything unless they've actually got evidence. So they arrested a 55-year-old man on suspicion of murder and disposing of a body. He was initially bailed on the 15th of July, but he was initially bailed because there was no evidence. And this is where the neighbour comes in. I do believe it was a neighbour who, because the police had searched the house quite intensively and hadn't found anything. And I think it was one of the neighbours that said, oh, you do know there's a cesspit there in the garage underneath the car. And there was a septic tank in the house that the police didn't know about. And it was out in the garage, and there was a car parked on top of it. So it was only because, it's what I'm saying about, it's local knowledge. It's, you know, it's an off comment like that this neighbour made. And the police, oh, is there? So what's the next thing they did? They looked in the septic tank. And in the septic tank, they found the remains of Helen and her little dog, Boris. So, well, they found that initially they didn't know it was her. They found some human remains in this, and then it was confirmed that they were, in fact, Helen's remains. And on the 16th of July, Ian Stewart was charged with murder. Now, I'm not going to play the arrest because, again, it's going to make this video probably too long, but I will put the link to it where you can see it. I mean, they turn up very early in the morning and catch him completely by surprise. And it must have been awful for his sons, because his sons were in the house, you know, for him to be arrested in front of them. Anyway, they arrest him, they take him off, and he was charged with murder, perverting the course of justice, and preventing a lawful burial. I don't think he was charged with animal cruelty, but, you know, they should be, these people, because they killed the dog as well. It's just totally unnecessary. Well, I suppose for him he was thinking, well, he'd do that so that it looks like she's gone off with the dog. Anyway, it came out in the autopsy that, in fact, he'd been drugging her with sleeping pills for months. You know, she'd been saying to her mum and her friends, oh, you know, I don't know what's wrong with me, I've got no energy, keep falling asleep in the afternoon. He was drugging her for a long time. And the other very scary thing is apparently he suffocated her after that, but she may still have been alive when he put her in the septic tank. And it seems like Boris definitely was, because there was a dog toy in there, and people think they threw the dog toy in so that Boris would jump in there. Oh my God, I could get so angry with this. But I mean, how cold, to do what he did to Helen, and then to do that. Oh, I don't know. I just, you can't get a head around what these people do, can you? Anyway, Helen's brother told the jury that in his one and only visit that he'd ever made to their new home, when he'd seen the cesspit, he had joked, oh, that would be a good place to hide a body. And Ian Stewart was present at that time, so he felt guilty. He felt like he'd given Ian the idea. Another thing that came up when it came to the trial was that Stewart had inadvertently connected Helen's mobile phone to the Wi-Fi in that holiday place of Broadstairs when he'd visited the house the day after. So the day after he reported her missing, there was a connection of the phone, and they think that was Ian. He had twice attempted, since Helen had gone missing, he had twice attempted to use power of attorney to sell a flat that Helen owned. On the day she vanished, he increased he had a standing order from Helen's account. She would transfer every month £400. He increased that. The day she vanished, he increased it from £400 a month to £4,000 a month. Now, obviously, Helen was a woman of means. She'd been successful in her career. I don't know what he did. I don't think he worked. Somebody might be. I need to look at that, but I don't think he did, because he had money from another source, which you'll find out later. He was the main beneficiary of her £3.4 million estate and her substantial life insurance policy. So, wonder what the motive was. Okay, so when he realised, that he couldn't escape the fact that she'd been found in the house, etc., and the evidence was mounting up against him, he came up with a story. And this reminds me of the Wayne Couzens, Sarah Everard case, of how he said that he'd been forced to kidnap a woman by these people who threatened him if he didn't kidnap a woman, and he kidnapped Sarah and gave her to this gang, and then he didn't know what happened to her after. I mean, for goodness sake, just admit what you've done. Well, he came up with a similar story. He said that Helen and the dog had been kidnapped by two men called Nick and Joe. Bearing in mind that one of his neighbours was called Nick and one of his friends was called Joe, so he wasn't even clever enough to come up with anything particularly inventive. He just picked the first names that he thought of. And they had told him not to say anything to the police, otherwise they would harm her, and they wanted a ransom of £500,000. So this was his new story. Obviously, it didn't go down well. Well, I say obviously, sometimes people do get believed. But luckily, he wasn't believed by the jury, and he was found guilty. And he was sentenced to life imprisonment. How many years? 34. 34 years. Whose life is that? How is this? It just drives him mad. So he's got to serve a minimum sentence of 34 years. Now, all right, he's in his 50s. I know he's going to be old before he's probably older now. Well, he's probably in his 60s by now. But how? Maybe he won't ever come out of prison, but he shouldn't even have a chance to come out of prison, not bearing in mind what he did. And as you know, for me, it's not even the initial. His wasn't an act of crime of passion. It wasn't done. It was planned. He was drugging her for months. He planned it all, and then it's the way he did it, what he did afterwards, just leaving her there. I mean, it's so disrespectful. I mean, it's revolting, isn't it, to do that to someone? Anyway, apparently the detective that led the case described him as a greedy, wicked narcissist. And I think we can all agree with that, can't we? His neighbours said that he had a volcanic temper, and he was described by everyone who knew him as obsessed with money. He hated, you know, paying for anything. So, is that the end of the story? No, that's not the end of the story. So just when you think, oh God, what a despicable case, what a despicable man, goodness me, the police started investigating him. Bearing in mind, he was a widow. He was a widow. His first wife had died also. And the police started investigating this because the coroner decided, or you know, from the information, obviously from him, etc., she was found in the garden, and it was declared that she'd had an epileptic fit, and she died as a result of that. And he just found her in the garden. But because of what had happened to Helen, the police began to investigate this death further. Now, talking of 999 calls, now we're going to listen to that first 999 call that Ian made when his first wife died.
She's in the garden.
Okay, right, you need to slow down, okay?
She's in the garden. She's unconscious.
Okay. Are you with the patient now?
I'm just indoors at the moment.
Can you see her from where you are?
Yeah.
How old is she, please?
She's 45, 47.
Is she awake?
No, she's not awake.
Is she breathing? Is she breathing?
No, I don't think so, no.
Right, you need to go and check on her, sir, for me, please.
I'm right beside her now.
Right, is she breathing?
No, sir, no.
She's not breathing?
Don't think so.
Right, well, check her for me.
Yeah.
Is she breathing?
I don't think so. I've turned her to try and put her in the recovery position, but I can't do it. She's just got back. I think she's had a fit.
You think she's had a fit?
I think so. She does have epilepsy.
Right, okay, just bear with me a moment.
There's a doctor who's on sick, so I go and get him.
No, just bear with me a moment. Just bear with me, I'm just going to talk to a colleague.
Do I do anything? What do I do?
It's very strange, 999 call,
She
999.
had more than one fit in a row.
She hasn't had a fit for a long time, about 20
Has she
years.
had more than one fit in a row?
When today?
Yes.
No, I wasn't there when it happened. I just found her. I don't know.
Is she pregnant?
No.
Is she diabetic?
No.
Is she an epileptic or ever had a fit before?
Yes. She's on.
Has the switching stopped yet?
Yes, she's not moving at all. She's not moving at all.
Okay, is she breathing at the moment?
As I said, I don't think so, but I don't know. She's puffing at the nose.
This 999 operator is not very good.
I don't get the doctor.
No, you need to listen to me, sir, okay? We need to try and help her until the help gets there, alright?
Okay. The doctor's just obviously,
Sir, please listen to me. We need to help her. I am organising help for you now. Stay on the line. I'll tell you exactly what to do next. Are you right by her now?
I'm right beside her, yeah.
Listen carefully. You need to lay her flat on her back, and remove any pillows.
There's no pillows and she is already flat. I've already done that.
Right, kneel next to her and look in her mouth for food or vomit.
Well, I've wiped some of that away already. There was vomit, yeah.
Just do what I'm telling you, sir, okay?
Yeah?
Is there anything in the mouth?
Well, it looks like I look sick, yeah.
Pardon?
Yeah, maybe look like this. Well,
Right, you need to calm yourself down so we can help her. Is there anything in the mouth?
I don't think so.
Okay, now place your hand on her forehead, your other hand under her neck, then tilt the head back, put your ear next to her mouth.
Hold on, I've got the phone down. Hold on. What have I got to do? Say that again, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah.
Place your hand on her forehead.
Yeah.
Your other hand under her neck.
Yeah.
Then tilt the head back.
Right.
Put your ear next to her mouth and tell me if you can feel or hear any breathing.
No, I can't.
You can't. Have you tilt your head back?
Hold on.
Are you doing that now, sir?
Yeah. No, I can't, no.
You can't feel or hear any breathing?
No.
Okay, listen carefully and I'll tell you how to do resuscitation. Place the heel of your hand on the breastbone in the centre of her chest, right between the nipples. Put your other hand on top of that hand.
Yeah.
Push down firmly 2 inches with only the heel of your lower hand touching the chest.
Yeah.
Now listen carefully. You need to pump the chest hard and fast at least twice per second. We're going to do this 600 times or until help can take over. Let the chest come all the way up between pumps.
Can I just say something? They can't get in at the moment, all the doors are locked.
Right, you need to start this, sir, okay?
Yeah, I'm not doing it.
Count down loud so that I can count with you.
So don't press twice and then release. Press twice, release, alright?
Right, pump the chest hard and fast at least twice per second.
Right, yeah.
Do this 600 times or until help can take over.
Okay, doing it.
You need to count out loud, sir, so that I can hear you.
What?
Well,
I think my mum was in it.
yes, I don't know about that 999 operator, but anyway, so yeah, so he'd already made a 999 call about, this time not about a missing wife, but a dead wife, and it was just declared as a natural death from epilepsy, but I think she donated. Anyway, I don't know how they managed to discovered on investigation that in fact she was suffocated. She didn't die of an epileptic fit. She was suffocated for up to an hour, and then, you know, Stuart used this excuse of epilepsy, and it was never investigated. Again, I think it's this middle-aged white man syndrome. You know, they just believed him. They just believed him what he said. I don't know. They didn't look into it. I mean, you know, I don't know. I suppose, you know, even your family, would they look into it if you suffered? You know, if you suffered from epilepsy, would your family take it further? I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of their relationship. Maybe the family, if they had reasons to suspect him, you know. But anyway, nothing happened. And now the family of Helen Bailey are understandably quite angry with the police, because obviously if he would have been investigated for his first wife's death, maybe properly, then this wouldn't have happened to Helen and her little dog, Boris. So, there you go. He's in prison. He received another 30-odd year sentence for the murder of his first wife. It must be awful for his family, his boys, you know, to now know that he actually killed their mother. I mean, you know, my heart goes out to them. So my heart goes out to everyone who's been affected in this case. Love and prayers to all of you. Except you, Ian. Sorry, I don't, you know, I don't have words for you. I think, you know, the Lord tells us to forgive people, etc. But it's very difficult to forgive someone like Ian, isn't it? So what do you think about this case? Has it rung bells with you? You know, are you divorced or widowed? You know, have you had good experiences with people you've met after, you know, losing somebody? Because, you know, that's it. Many widows, and widowers, they go, especially if they've been widowed young, they go on to have other relationships. You know, it must be especially difficult to be widowed young, for the simple reason that as you're older, maybe it's happening to other people that you know, and you've got more people that can relate to you. And then when you're young, it must be quite difficult. But it's only like being divorced, in the sense of suddenly you're not part of a couple anymore. You're not invited to things that couples are invited to. You know, that can be difficult too. So yeah, because when you are single, as a woman, I'm talking about, I don't know what it's like being a single man, obviously, but in my experience, you are a bit of an anomaly, especially if you don't really want another relationship, because you don't fit into couples, and if you're sort of not really young, like most young people, most single people are young, so if you're not young, you don't fit into that category, and if you're a single parent, you know, you sort of, you get to know people with children, but you're not in a couple, so it's tricky, isn't it? So really what you have to be is just be yourself, isn't it? So that's how I am now. I've no interest in another relationship. Having said that, I'm not, I mean, if I met someone that I really liked, I can't see that happening, but if it did, you know, I'm not, you know, I don't hate men or anything. In fact, I really quite like men. I enjoy men's company. So we'll see what happens in the future. But anyway, I wanted to present this story of Helen. I think it's important to keep her current, her writing as well, because how awful, you know, to be so successful and now, you know, her writing should live on because she was good, you know, she was a good writer. And how dare he do what he did just for greed? I mean, he must have thought he'd won the lottery when he met Helen, and when he realised sort of what she had and what position, financial position she was in, he must have thought he'd won the lottery. I expect he started planning it then, to be honest. But okay, so if you're still with me, because it'll probably end up being quite a long video, this. If you're still here with me, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for buying my book. I forgot to mention about the you can buy me a coffee. They should call it a glass of wine, really, shouldn't they, rather than a coffee? Well, for me, anyway. Yes. This video is a good example of why I always say, remember to live and love very carefully. I mean, you shouldn't be cynical, but you have to be aware. You know, you have to go with your instinct, really. That's all you can do, isn't it? If your instinct is telling you something's wrong. Maybe Helen's instinct wasn't telling her that, because her instinct, obviously, because of losing her husband, her instincts maybe were a bit blurred. I think Helen just wanted to be loved. And yes, I'll see you very soon in the next video. And until then, live and love very carefully. And may your God go with you. Thank you so much.